My billionaire father just called me a failure in front of 50 elite guests. But as I handed him a single white envelope, I whispered, "Happy Father's Day, Richard." Or should I say, stranger? His face turned white as he realized his 30-year lie was finally over. For 32 years, I lived in a mansion that felt more like a prison with expensive landscaping. My father, Richard Sterling, was a man whose heart was as cold as the diamonds he traded. I was the black sheep, a simple public school teacher in a family of corporate sharks. At every family dinner, Richard made sure I knew I was a disappointment. But everything changed 2 months ago when my Aunt Martha handed me a dusty wooden box. "Your mother wanted you to have this when you were ready," she whispered, her eyes filled with a sadness I didn't understand yet. Inside was my mother Rose's old leather journal and a sealed envelope that smelled like her old perfume. As I read her frantic handwriting, the floor beneath me seemed to vanish. My mother hadn't died in a simple car accident, and Richard Sterling wasn't the man I thought he was. The journal detailed a life of terror. Richard didn't marry my mother for love, he married her for the vast sterling timberlands her family owned. But there was a catch. My mother was already pregnant with me, the child of her true love, a man named James. Richard agreed to claim me only to secure the land. He had signed adoption papers the day I was born, a secret he kept buried for 3 decades while he treated me like a burden he was forced to carry. I decided to take a DNA test in secret. When the results came back, they were a cold, hard 0%. Richard wasn't just a bad father, he wasn't my father at all. But as I prepared to confront him, I overheard my stepmother, Vivian, plotting in the library. "Once we humiliate her at the gala," she hissed, "Richard can finally cut her out of the will. No mess, no inheritance, she'll just be gone." They thought they were setting a trap for me, but they had no idea I was about to walk into that gala with a bomb in a white envelope. I stood behind the velvet curtains, watching Richard prepare his speech. He was about to destroy my reputation, but I was about to destroy his entire legacy. You won't believe what happened when he opened that envelope in front of the Forbes cameras. The Sterling Legacy Gala was the event of the year. The room was filled with the scent of lilies and expensive champagne. Richard stood at the head of a mahogany table, raising a crystal glass of Chateau Margaux. "I'm proud of my legacy," he boomed, his voice dripping with fake sincerity. "I'm proud of my son Marcus and my daughter Clarissa. But," he paused, locking eyes with me, "every garden has a weed. And tonight, I'm identifying ours." The room went silent. My brother Marcus looked away, and Vivian, my stepmother, smirked behind her wine glass. They expected me to cry. They expected me to run out in shame. Instead, I stood up. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I walked straight to the head of the table. I didn't say a word. I simply placed the white envelope on his gold-rimmed plate. "For you, Richard," I said, my voice steady for the first time in my life. "A gift 32 years in the making. Happy Father's Day." I turned and walked toward the exit, but I didn't leave. I waited in the shadows of the foyer. A moment later, a sound erupted that stopped the music. It was a scream, raw, jagged, and filled with a terror Richard Sterling had never shown the world. Crash! His wine glass shattered against the table, the red liquid spreading across the white linen like a fresh wound. "No, no, this can't be." Richard shrieked. Vivian snatched the papers from his trembling hands and, in her panic, she did exactly what I hoped she would. She read the results out loud for every journalist and business partner to hear. DNA results. Probability of paternity, 0%. Adoption certificate. "Richard, what is this? Elena isn't your child." The room exploded into whispers. The Sterling legacy was crumbling in real time. But as Richard tried to scramble for an explanation, Aunt Martha stepped into the light, and she brought a truth that was even darker than the DNA results. Richard tried to claim my mother was the liar, but Aunt Martha held a secret that would lead to his business partners walking out and his own son resigning. The accident that took my mother. It wasn't an accident at all. She didn't lose control of the car, Richard. Aunt Martha's voice rang out over the chaos. She lost hope. You told her that night you were taking Elena away, that you were sending her to a boarding school across the world and she'd never see her baby again. The room gasped as Martha continued. Rose was driving to save her daughter. She chose to die rather than let you break that little girl's spirit any further. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard slumped in his chair, a broken man surrounded by the ruins of his reputation. His business partners began to stand up, quietly exiting the room. They couldn't be associated with a man like this. My brother Marcus stood up next. He looked at Richard with a disgust I'd never seen before. "My whole life, you made me hate her," Marcus whispered. "You used me as a weapon against my own sister. I'm done. I resign." Even Clarissa, the golden child, walked over to me. She didn't say anything, she just took my hand. In that moment, the power Richard Sterling had held over us for decades vanished. I walked out of that mansion and never looked back. I didn't want his money. I didn't want his name. I went to my mother's grave that night, the moon reflecting off the fresh headstone I had placed there. For the first time, I didn't feel like a disappointment. I felt like Elena, daughter of Rose and James. I spent the next month connecting with my true family. Clarissa and Marcus reached out, seeking to build a real relationship away from our parents' toxicity. I found peace in my small classroom, teaching children that their worth isn't defined by the name on their birth certificate, but by the truth in their hearts. Richard Sterling's empire eventually collapsed, but I was already building something much stronger, a life built on the truth. I finally knew who I was. And that was a wealth no billionaire could ever take away.